The 2010 to 2017 GMC Terrain and the 2010 to 2017 Chevrolet Equinox have the same engine. It's the 2.4 liter engine, the 4 cylinders engine, and it has several problems. These SUVs have 4 major problems, and 3 of those problems are an engine problem, and one of those engine problems is the main cause for the other 2, or it's the deadliest one to the engine if neglected. So in this video I'm going to go over these problems with you, and then I'm going to break it down in 3 different stages. The first stage is the car is not making any noises, it drives good, the engine has no noises. And then second stage, the engine has started making noises, and the third stage, the engine is blown. So, and then I'm going to share with you what you can do about these problems according to these 3 different stages, when the car or the engine is in these 3 different stages. If after watching this video it adds value to you, then subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, and comment on this video. It really helps my channel, and thank you for watching. The 4 major problems with these SUVs are the following: piston ring failure or oil consumption, timing chain noise or failure, PCV system failure, and the transfer case failure. So let's talk about the piston ring problem in this 2.4 liter engine or 4 cylinders engine used in these two SUVs, also used in other GM models out there, but these 2 models are the models that, or the main models that use this 2.4 liter engine or 4 cylinders engine with the piston ring problem due to poor design and poor quality of parts. The pistons go up and down in the engine, and the rings seal the pistons so that the engine oil in the crankcase doesn't go into the compression chamber, and so that the compression in the compression chamber doesn't go into the engine oil. In the compression chamber, the fuel that is being injected in the engine is being burned in there, so the rings seal the pistons, and that compression doesn't go into the oil. And so when the piston rings go bad, the engine oil in the crankcase goes into the compression chamber and gets burned with the fuel that's being injected in the engine. So that explains why so many of these engines burn a lot of oil. And this causes other problems like damaging the catalytic converter, the spark plugs, and the oxygen sensors. And so when some of the compression goes into the crankcase where the engine oil is, it contains gas, and so when the gas mixes with the engine oil doesn't lubricate the engine, as well as when it has just engine oil in the crankcase, it also builds up sludge in the engine, leading to other problems like the timing chain problem and the PCV system problem. This is the second problem of this engine, the timing chain problem. The chrome on the rollers on the timing chain starts to come off, and when that starts to come off, it's the timing chain stretches out a little bit, and so it has slack in it. That's one problem with the timing chain. The other problem is the timing chain tensioner, the hydraulic timing chain tensioner. The timing chain tensioner needs good engine oil in it to function properly, and when sludge builds up in the engine, it sometimes plugs the timing chain tensioner and the engine oil doesn't go in it, or when the engine oil goes low, because this engine has an oil consumption problem due to the bad piston rings. When the engine oil goes low, the timing chain tensioner decompresses because it doesn't have enough oil in it or enough pressure in it. So the timing chain gets shorter, and the timing chain starts to have slack in it, and it starts slapping on the valve cover. So that's why you will hear a noise in front of the engine, on top of the engine. It's because the timing chain starts slapping on the valve cover. And so the timing chain starts to wear out as it rotates inside of the engine, slapping inside of the engine. Eventually it breaks, and so that leads to major engine problem like bent valves and the rocker arms falling out and all of that. And so the engine quits while driving, and that's due to the broken timing chain or the low engine oil due to the oil consumption by the piston rings. The third problem with this engine is the Positive Crankcase Ventilation System, or the PCV system. This system's job is to vent the crankcase, because when the engine oil in the crankcase gets hot, it starts steaming, and if the steam is not vented from the crankcase, the steam is going to build up pressure in the crankcase, and if it's not vented, it's going to go somewhere and it's going to start leaking out of the seals of the engine. And so that's why the PCV system is there. And when the PCV system goes bad, like in this engine, because it starts building up sludge in the tubes, or the PCV system tubes, it starts plugging those tubes, and so the steam is not vented well. It's like when it's a good PCV system. And so that's why usually this engine starts to leak out from the rear main seal. It starts to leak engine oil from the rear main seal, and so if you go underneath the car, you will see engine oil between the engine and the transmission. That's a rear main seal leakage due to the crankcase ventilation system that doesn't work, or it's not working properly. The sludge in this PCV system builds up because when it's working, it not only vents the crankcase, or taking the steam from the crankcase to put it in the intake manifold, it also takes raw engine oil and it puts it in the intake manifold to be burnt with the fuel that's being injected in the engine. So when this raw oil goes into the PCV system, which it shouldn't do, it should just take the steam or the pressure in the crankcase and put it in the intake manifold. When this oil goes in through this PCV system, some of it stays in the PCV system and it builds up the sludge, and then it plugs the PCV system, leading to leakage at the rear main seal of this engine and other seals too. The fourth problem with these vehicles is the transfer case going bad. If the vehicle is a four-wheel drive or an all-wheel drive vehicle, then it's going to have a transfer case, and this transfer case goes bad due to lack of lubrication or lack of transfer case fluid in it. And this transfer case doesn't have a lot of fluid in it from the factory. It only has 1.06 quarts of fluid, which is just one little bottle in it. And so over time the fluid gets low, and if you don't check the fluid in the transfer case, then the transfer case is not going to be lubricated properly, and if you don't just check it, and the transfer case fluid is going to get lower and lower and lower, and so the transfer case is going to have internal damage, and it goes bad due to lack of maintenance or lack of transfer case fluid. Okay, so now you know what the four major problems are with these SUVs: the 2010 to 2017 GMC Terrain and the Chevrolet Equinox. And so let's break it down in three different stages, and I'll share with you what you can do about it when it's in these three different stages of its life. First stage, the vehicle is not making any noises, the engine is not ticking, it's not consuming any oil or anything like that. The engine is good, the car is drives good, everything is good with it. What you should do in this case is you should check your engine oil every 2 weeks and change your engine oil every 3,000 miles, not 7,500 miles like GM recommends. Because what happens in this case, if you change it at 7,500 miles, it's going to build up sludge in the engine. If you change it every 3,000 miles, the engine is going to be clean. It's going to keep it clean, because the gas that goes into the crankcase is going to be drained with the old engine oil. Then you put new engine oil in it, and so it's going to stay clean inside of the engine. And these engines don't have to have hundreds of thousands of miles on them to start consuming engine oil or to start having these problems. These engines start having problems at 25,000 miles to 130,000 miles. Within that time frame, it starts consuming engine oil, it starts making noises, and the engine just quits if you don't fix it on time. And so that's why you should check your engine oil every 2,000 miles, even if it only has 20, 30, 50,000 miles on it. Check your engine oil every 2,000 miles, change the engine oil every 3,000 miles, not 7,500 miles, or don't follow the oil percentage on the dash. don't follow that. Just do your engine oil every 3,000 miles. Check it every 2 weeks, 2 times every month. Also change the transfer case fluid every 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles. Change the transfer case fluid. It's just 1 quart of fluid. Drain it, put new fluid in it, and it should be good from there. And so that's what you should do in this stage of the vehicle. If it's good, it's not making any noises. Second stage, the vehicle or the engine has started making noises. There are 2 types of noises that the engine can make, and depending on which noise it's making is what you should do. If it's making like ticking noises or like a slack, you hear like it's slapping inside of the engine but on front of the engine, then that's the timing chain. But if it's making a loud noise, like a knocking noise, and you can't really hear where it's coming from, you can't really figure out if it's coming from the front, underneath the engine, or on top of the engine, it's just a loud knocking noise. This is usually the piston rod bearings going bad, or other major problems inside of the engine if it's a loud knocking noise, and that's due to the low engine oil or oil consumption in the engine. So obviously take it to a shop to get it diagnosed, to figure out if it's still fixable or not, because if it's a loud noise, it's just really a lot of damage inside of the engine. But if it's the ticking noise on front of the engine, or the timing chain slapping on the valve cover, and you'll hear that on the front of the engine, then these are the parts that you should replace in this engine if you want to fix it. The list of parts that you should change is the timing chain kit, and that comes with the timing chain tensioner, the timing chain guide, obviously the timing chain. And to stop the oil consumption, get the piston rings changed and get the PCV system cleaned out, or change the PCV valve, PCV hoses and all of that, and also change the rear main seal. So basically the engine would have to be rebuilt. If it was just a timing chain problem, then just change the timing chain and all the timing chain kit, then it should be good from there. But because this engine has the oil consumption problem due to the piston rings, then to get to the piston rings, the engine has to be removed, disassemble the engine, put new piston rings in there, put the engine back together with new seals, new gaskets, new rear main seal, and then put it back in the car. So this is very costly, but if you want to fix it or you want to keep it, this is what you have to do, or this is what you should do to prolong the life of this engine. Also get good quality parts so that you don't have to deal with this for a good while. Third stage, the engine is blown. The engine has to be replaced. The engine can't be rebuilt. It just has to be replaced. In this case, don't replace the engine with a used engine from a wreck yard or a used engine online. Just get a new engine or a rebuilt engine, because if you put a used engine in it, it's going to break down really soon. Like what happened to one of my customers. He's got a 2011 GMC Terrain with a 2.4 liter engine. So the engine started making noises and it started losing power, and so he took it to a shop, and they started to replace parts, and they couldn't get it fixed because it still had noises all inside of the engine. And so he took it to another shop, and they said that it needed a new engine. So they got a used engine from a wreck yard. And this used engine it wasn't rebuilt. They didn't put new parts in it before they put it in the car, and so they just put it in the car, and so it started having noises again, and it quit all of a sudden. Just 1 week after the engine was replaced, it went out again. 1 week. And so don't replace the engine with a used engine. If you must use a used engine, then replace all the parts that we went through in the second stage in this engine, or rebuild the engine so that it doesn't happen again to you anytime soon, like what happened to my customer. Just 1 week after replacing the engine, it blew out again. Alright, so that's it in this video. If you like this video, or if this video added value to you, then hit the I like it button. If this video didn't add value to you, then hit the I don't like it button. Also subscribe to my channel. I upload videos like this. And if this video didn't make sense, I hope it made sense. But if it did make sense, or if you have any questions, then comment on the comment section and I'll answer to your questions. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.